Hey guys, I am here at the house of Margaret Lovelace. You might figure out our last names are kind of the similar. We happen to marry brothers. So this week in Sunday school, we are learning about Jesus's family tree. In the book of Matthew, he opens up and he has a whole bunch of names that I probably have read before, but I really don't remember who they are.
I remember Adam.
Yeah. He's not listed in Matthew's genealogy, though. He kind of starts at Abraham.
Boy, I'm rusty on my history then.
And he makes a big point of Jesus being part of David's family tree. Because the Messiah was supposed to be part of David's kingdom to fulfill the prophecies. So we're looking at a lot of our own family trees to see what we can remember about our ancestors. Now, half of our combined tree looks kind of similar because of the whole Lovelace thing. But I'd like to learn a little bit more about your half of the family tree.
Okay. Let's see. My dad was raised Jewish. My mom was raised Roman Catholic. My dad was bar mitzvahed at 13, which means he became an adult in the Jewish.
At 13.
Yeah.
That's a little different.
Yeah, especially when most people say, okay, you're an adult at 18. It was when I found out he was Jewish and he was considered an adult at 13, I was just like, huh, okay, I can work with that, I think. Unfortunately, both of my parents fell away from the faith. They met and they started going to church shortly before I was born, and then I'm not really sure of all the details because I wasn't there. I mean, I was there, but I wasn't there, so to speak. My mom said she had a really hard delivery with me, and they decided they were going to raise their children if they had another one in the church, which is really big, especially considering my dad was raised Jewish. 6 weeks before I was christened as a baby, my dad was baptized himself, and he became Messianic Jewish, which means he believed Jesus was the Messiah and not a prophet like the Jewish people believe, and they're still waiting.
I'm getting goosebumps. That is so cool.
I love to hear that.
Awesome. Well, it could be goosebumps or it could just be we're in Pennsylvania and it's cold over here. Oh my goodness. But she turned the heater on. So that's really cool. So you have Jewish roots back through your father.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you were to draw or emphasize your family tree, would you give them both like equal? Because Matthew tries really hard to prove a point through David. So he only chooses to list the men in Jesus's family tree. Exception, there are 4 ladies that he mentioned, but that's kind of rare to do back then.
That's a good question. I think I would do it equally just because of the fact that my mom was raised Roman Catholic and the fact that my dad was Jewish and then became Messianic Jewish. So, yeah.
It all kind of feeds in.
Yeah, I think it would just kind of make sense, not to sound cheesy or corny, but I think it would just be a nice tie-in just to say, hey, my dad became Messianic Jew. My mom went back to Christianity after being away from it for X many years. But yeah, I think I would do it equally and balanced them out as much as I could.
And your family tree doesn't end at your parents. They had parents too,
Right.
which would have been your grandparents.
Yeah.
Did you get to meet your grandparents or possibly your great-grandparents?
That's also a good question. I met my dad's mom. My dad's dad, unfortunately, had passed away from a heart attack. He was only 42, and I was not even thought about it, let alone my dad did not even know my mom at the time. And that's actually something that's really interesting, and I can tap on it a little bit more, is my dad's parents were divorced when my dad was 17. So my dad really had to take care of his family, and it was really hard on him because he was just graduating from high school. He was going to start college. He had to work to put himself through college as well as make sure his mom and his sisters were okay. So yeah, I knew my grandmother, my dad's mom. She also actually converted to Christianity shortly before her death. She had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, had a vision of Christ standing in her hospital room, according to my dad's youngest sister, who is also now Catholic. So 3 people in this family have become Messianic Jewish. And she thought her mom wanted a hug. Turns out she saw Jesus saying, "Come on, come home to me, it's all good." And after that vision, my grandmother told my aunt, "Get Henry, who's my dad, into the hospital room so she could get baptized." And she did, and shortly thereafter, I believe she went into a coma and never woke up again. So I have little memory of her. My mom's side of the family, I never got to meet my grandmother. Heard she was into physics, which I find kind of funny considering where I am now in a family where there is a physicist. And I did get to meet my great-grandmother, my mother's grandmother, so my mom's mom's mom, and she lived, I think, to be like 98.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, and that was just really cool because apparently she was a really, really, really good piano player. I mean, you know, Jason is phenomenal, but this woman, beyond phenomenal. She loved dressing up in the 1920s during the flapper era, which I think is so funny too. And then, of course, I knew
100 years ago, 1920s.
Oh my goodness.
That's fun.
I wouldn't even have thought. Of course, I did know my mom's dad, and he was with me until 2010 when he died at 84. I have a lot of good memories about him. I remember going to the south of France with him, my mom's sisters, my mom, my dad, my younger sister, and of course me. When I turned 4, my grandfather recorded onto cassette tape Winnie the Pooh. So I have a big thing for Winnie the Pooh. I'm trying to think what else I know about my grandfather. He is British. My grandmother on my mom's side was also British, and my grandfather was in the Royal Navy, went to Bermuda in 1940-something, and in 1947 he and my grandmother got married, moved to the U.S., mainly New York, got dual citizenship, and he started working for Pan American Airlines as the executive director of advertising.
That is quite a legacy. That's so cool that you've got to meet them. I know I have a picture of like one of my great grandparents who has actually lived in Pennsylvania. I don't remember where. I'm lousy about that. But it's a black and white photograph, and little toddler Elizabeth is there sitting on his knee with her Winnie the Pooh doll.
See, we have a lot in common besides the brothers.
So you had pointed out to me earlier this etching, and I'm going to move the phone. It's going to be a little bit shaky while we do that stretch.
Yep, Pennsylvania doesn't get earthquakes much.
So what is this that they are looking at?
So in
Can you guys even see it?
2001, in August, we did a family trip, my parents, my sister, to Europe. And my grandfather, with his second wife, my step-grandmother, met up with us in the Isle of Wight, and then we, from Isle of Wight, which is in England, went to Normandy and stayed in our rented farmhouse for the week and did all the touristy things. And one of the main things we did was visit all the beaches in Normandy where they put the U.S. Army down for fighting in World War II, D-Day. Apparently, and I didn't know this until, I guess I was 9, 10 years old. My grandfather had a brother named Michael. We really didn't talk about him much. He was 3, 5 years older than my grandfather, and apparently he died in Normandy in 19...
He was one of the soldiers.
Yeah. And being there in 2001 was very, what's the word I want? Very...
I'm thinking poetic.
Yeah, and also like awestruck kind of feeling.
Okay.
Just like more of like this patriotism coming out. And then 9/11 happened shortly thereafter, and it was just so weird to be somewhere where a major war happened, and then 9/11 happened, and I'm like, okay, I kind of feel like my life is full circle now because of my great uncle's sacrifice. And he was only 24, and as my mom pointed out to me last week, he died on the 8th month on the 8th day, and in 1944, and it was just completely blew me away. I never even thought about it. I was just like, huh. So as a gift to my grandfather, my sister, who was also an Elizabeth, and I did this rubbing of the headstone of where my great uncle is buried, presented it to my grandfather shortly after our trip, and he was just so blown away.
I can imagine. Wow.
Yeah, and he doesn't, they're from that generation where they don't show emotion, and
Right.
he got teary-eyed, especially at the cemetery, and then again when he was presented with this gift.
That is a very unique and very memorable gift. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your family tree and the history. I look forward to learning more, but for the sake of the video, we'll say goodbye for now.
Bye, guys.
See you later. Maybe if I can reach the off button.